On this Jimmy Friday, and we back at it. You know, the last couple of weeks I spoke on the burdens we carry from our own decisions and getting yoked with the Creator. So I'm going to read you Matthew chapter 11, verse 30 to finish this up. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. So, he's not asking you to do nothing hard. He is leading you down a narrow path that not too many will travel on. So it will be much more peaceful for you. You will have less distractions on your journey. You will be linked together with the protector of your soul. His yoke is easy to bear. The scripture puts me in mind of a mother and a child, how they're linked together from birth. The mother is carrying a child for 8 to 9 months. So, they already have a bond. This child is trusting in the mother without knowing what trust is. So the mother has already gotten diapers, formula to feed the child. She has already put into action things needed beforehand to care for this child. As the child grows older, it gains more confidence in the parent to supply his or her needs. The bond becomes much stronger. The child is very dependent on the parent. And so, this scripture, it puts me in mind, that like the vision that how Christ is looking at things, how he says, take my yoke upon you. So, he wants to be yoked with us because he wants to make it a lot more easier for us. As a parent, you want your child to trust you, to confide in you, for any and every situation they are dealing with in life. And as a parent, you want to be able to have a strong connection with your child. But the child must first open up to you and allow the parent access for a platonic relationship. So many people miss out on healing because they don't allow the person that can restore your soul access to their lives. So I'm going to read you another scripture that reminds me of, how just a mother is taking in, their child into protection. He says, oh, how I have longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. So, when I read that, it makes me think about how we close the door. We don't allow access. So, and over time, we're hurting. We're falling apart on the inside because we're not allowing the one that can restore our soul access to us. He says, the Spirit goes on to say, the burden I give you is light. So the heaviest thing that is asked of you is to change old habits that you are accustomed to. If you're a thief, steal no more. If you are a liar, tell the truth. If you are a drunkard, stop overindulging. Learn self-control. Stop being crooked in your business. Stop cheating people out of what is rightfully theirs. Stop scheming on people for a profit. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. All these type of requests we look at as burdens, and they're simple. They're real simple. But on our own, we'll go into debt over material things. We will become unequally yoked to a person in a relationship and be mentally and physically damaged. We will be weighed down from overindulging in habits that causes us financial burdens, which lead to broken homes. All the Spirit wants from us is to walk in peace and walk humbly with our Maker. But we make things a lot harder on ourselves just because we think we know everything and our way is right. And sometimes, your way is not the right way. Sometimes you need a reality check. I get weighed down by comparing my work ethics to someone else. That comparison turns into frustration. So now I'm frustrated for hours, not even knowing until the Spirit has to correct me. And so You know, I'm walking around with this heavy burden on me, you know, and I wonder why I'm so mentally drained. You know, so then I think about, you know, what I'm allowing myself to carry in the physical realm when the battle we deal with out here is in a spiritual battle. So, you know, you have to fight things on a spiritual level, or physically you're done. You know, that is why Christ said, my yoke is easy to bear and the burden I give you is light. You know, comparing his offer to what we feel is a better option is insane. We're just doing the same thing over and over. You know, we're not getting no results, just the same results over and over. You know, it's time to cut ties with the yokes that is keeping us unfruitful and come out from under those burdens that is destroying us. The Creator is wanting to have you invigorating. He wants you strengthened, you know, to feel energized, to be healed. You know, Yahweh said, today I set before you life and death. Choose life. So it's time to start getting unyoked, you know, start cutting these ties from things that's holding us down and weighing us back. So keep your head up. You know, life is a forward march. You know, forget what's behind you and focus on what's in front of you. Because those things that are behind us is what's keeping us from walking into our destiny and walking through those opening doors that God has prepared for us long before we was born. So step into your destiny and let go of the things that's behind and that's holding you back. So y'all be cool, and I'll catch y'all next time.